Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 11 of Eternal Backlog Podcast. How you guys doing? Hopefully you're doing well. I'm here with Shady. How's things been? You've been celebrating over the weekend and went to a specific hotel, which looked very, very big indeed.
Yeah, no, it
or
was,
at least the bed, so you could wrestle on it.
No, it was mine and the wife's anniversary, so we decided to... what we tend to do, 'cause for those that don't know, I live out in Las Vegas, so every year we'll stay in a different hotel and give our sort of thumbs up or thumbs down on it. And this year we managed to swing a free room at the Trump International.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And it's one of the only hotels on the Strip that doesn't have a casino inside, surprisingly.
Oh, is it not?
No,
Okay.
so you don't get the smell of the smoke and all the riffraff and a certain crowd that lingers around after they've lost all their life savings. And very nice indeed. Very nice indeed.
So you can still smoke inside certain hotels there, can you?
Oh yeah,
it's
you just walk around with a fag hanging out your mouth or a cigar or something, and it's completely fine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Ashtrays everywhere.
The only way I can see what happens there is through like Louis Theroux, and because he did the old special documentary on like the high rollers and stuff. So
yeah, there's a good I forgot the name of it. There's a YouTuber, and I don't subscribe to her, but her videos always get recommended on my feed. And they'll do a bunch of traveling videos, and they did every Vegas hotel in 2 weeks. One night at every hotel. Right. It took 2 weeks to do, and they did it in sort of like a horseshoe fashion across the Strip. Yeah. And that was really interesting. I learned a few things there. So if you're that interested in the hospitality experience while you're in Vegas, then or you're planning to visit, it's definitely worth a watch, because what may seem definitely isn't. I sound like Kamala Harris now.
Okay.
Not everything's what it seems like, let's put it that way.
Right, fair enough. Because I know you can get the old concierge service and pretty much get anything that you want if you've got enough money.
Listen,
I mean, anything.
It's not just Vegas, it's America in general. You can have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay for it. Yeah. That's kind of the motto over here. So
I don't know what the motto is over here under Kier. And I can't remember. He now wants to stop us from smoking outside.
I did hear about that.
It's like, what are you doing?
So is it literally just your house now you can smoke in?
Well, anywhere that's noteworthy and decent worth smoking. So he wants to ban it in parks. He wants to ban it outside football stadiums. He wants to ban it outside of pubs, which is going to kill the pubs off. So I don't know what he's expecting us to do. At the same time that they spent 14 years trying to push us onto electric cars, they've realised that they're not getting the same amount of money on fuel duty anymore. So now they're looking at introducing a pay per mile tax on cars. It's like, what? So they'll be trying. I don't know what they're going to do to make up for the lack of money that they would get on beer now, if they're going to introduce a smoking ban.
What a crazy idea. Stop funding wars on the other side of the world. You might save
a few quid. Exactly.
I'm not an economist, but it just sounds like 1 + 1 = 2 here.
That is the answer. It really is.
There you go.
Anyway, coming up on today's episode, we're going to be going deep into Astro Bot, the Team Asobi game that has been pretty much sort of shaking up the gaming world the last couple of weeks like a vacuum. We had Black Myth Wukong doing the rounds, and now Astro Bot is kind of taking center stage. So much so, I went out and bought my first full price game in a very long time and played Astro Bots, and then within 24 hours you did the same. So We're going to be talking about that on this particular episode. We'll talk about the other games we've been playing as well. We've got some interesting news happening off the back of the PS5 Pro announcement earlier this week, and we'll probably double down and talk about that again. We have time for that to percolate and think about that a little bit more. It's also the 25th anniversary of the Dreamcast, so we're going to be talking a little bit about some of our favourite games from that system. Some good news on the Capcom and Xbox front, and there's much more, but why don't we talk into that? Let's get straight into the play stack then. We'll leave Astro Bot for the last thing because we want to go deep on that one. what's been taking your sense? I have to start off on a game which was an easy 1000G because I went through it and I quite liked it once you understood how to actually stop the thing drifting all over like a shopping cart. But it's called Spin Truck Racing.
Yeah, it's one of those weird ones that I started playing and I thought, oh, this is easy. And then you're right, it started drifting all over the place. But it's also one of those games that you don't even need to unlock any cars to continue playing. I'm still using the first default car and I'm halfway through the game. I'm halfway through the game. Like, yeah, there's little advantages, but honestly, the trade-offs are too much to even bother going with a faster car with worse handling, So I just stick to the, one-size-fits-all car.
I went for the one that had... So the off-road tracks.
Oh, God,
I ended up unlocking the car that had like the higher grip but less speed.
Yeah.
And it just took a little bit of that shopping cart on ice experience away. But once you dialed in the drift, it wasn't that bad. You just had to know how to drift it right.
So, but there's still issues with the drift. It's weird because you sort of, your car starts to swing, your back goes out, and then normally in racing games, if you're swinging left, you hit right to kind of counter it. So you're sort of going back and forth a little bit as you go around the bend. This doesn't do that. You hit right, and the whole car tends to turn, and it's like, whoa, hang on a second, what's going on? It's like they haven't even tried to implement physics in this. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. So physics goes out the window. And every now and then you'll hit a wall and there's like an imaginary wall next to it. So your car would just like flip and then flip again. It's like, it's weird. I put like maybe, it's as budget as it gets.
So that, obviously, from that to a better quality racing game.
Yes.
So
Forza
you
Motorsport.
finally gone into Forza Motorsport. Obviously, we said on last week's podcast, I'm more a fan of the Horizon series. But you still got a soft spot for this more simulated affair. How have you been finding this version that's taking up so much space on your hard drive?
So just to clarify, I'm with you. I prefer the Horizon series, absolutely. I think it's just more of a visual... It's a Candyland, visual Candyland. But this is a reboot in the simulator series, the Motorsport series. And because it's the first real next-gen version, I did want to put it through its paces fairly. There was a lot of tech in there that hadn't been done before. And I wanted to see how it kind of stacked up with Gran Turismo 7 because I still haven't played Gran Turismo 7. And every time I think I'm going to buy it when it's on sale, it's on my wish list, on my PlayStation wish list on the store. And every time I think, it's half price, maybe I should buy it. I'll go on YouTube, have a look. I'm just like, it just feels so robotic and clinical. It doesn't have this sense of speed that Forza does. I don't know what it is. It's really weird. I don't know. I for me, as I'm playing a racing game, common sense would suggest I want it to feel fast. Just don't get that sense of pacing with Gran Turismo for some reason.
Have they finally allowed damage in that game? Because I remember back in the day, the car manufacturers didn't like it.
Yeah, they've had damage on the last few titles, to be honest. I turn it off because so there's different levels of simulation, right? So if you turn... I don't know how to explain it. There's like it's like a checklist of simulation items, right? Tire wear, fuel, weather conditions, the slipperiness of the track, all that kind of stuff, right? Brake assist. The more you turn on, the more XP you'll get if you're able to manage all that stuff. Manual gears, things like that. If you turn off sort of half of those aids, then you're kind of only going to get half of the XP for finishing the race, basically. So it is what you want it to be. And I'm sort of... I want to say 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I've got half of the realism on. I can't do manual gears in a racing game for some reason. It's just one of those things that I don't want to worry about.
Yeah.
Weather conditions, again, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I find it's fun in the beginning, and then as you kind of progress in the game, it's just like, all right, I don't want to be dealing with all this rain now because it starts chucking thunder at you, and it just ruins the experience for me. But I think that's definitely a game worth hooking up to a rig with a steering wheel and everything. I just wish there was a way to play Forza on VR because it is a gorgeous game, absolutely beautiful.
Have they still got all of the famous tracks? Was it Autumn? Is it Autumn Circle?
Yeah, Laguna Seca, Yas Marina, Silverstone. Yeah, they're all there. They're all there in all their 4K 60 glory. Yeah, it's got an interesting mode, since this is the topic of conversation lately. You've got your performance mode, you've got your fidelity mode, and then what they've done, they've also got performance RT mode. So it's performance, so it sticks to the 60 FPS, but it allows some ray tracing.
Right.
So you kind of get this in between if you've got a variable refresh rate TV that can kind of handle split frames, which I do. So I've lent on that side of things. It's nice, real nice.
Nice. And I've got to ask you about the Modern Warfare 3 campaign, because obviously I banged on about how much I enjoyed it after a 14-year absence, but you said to me that this is the first Call of Duty you've played with this open mission type.
Yeah, so when you said open, I don't know if you used the phrase open world or open missions, but there was a couple, I think Cold War had this, where you can kind of finish a level in two different directions. You can either take the left route or the right route. And there was little RPG elements. You talk to a character and it'll give you sort of 4 options like Starfield. I thought you were talking about that. But then when I got to the second level and it actually gave me an open space with 3 objectives and you can tackle them in any order you want, I thought, oh, wow, this is the first time I'm actually feeling that this is opening up properly. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. Plays really well. Funnily enough, it essentially is Warzone with waypoints, with mission waypoints.
Well, yeah.
Because you've got the armor that you have to keep replenishing, and you're looking through.
But it's not anywhere near as bad, because you're facing off against, NPC style characters, people that haven't been playing 800 hours worth of.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
I would love to see Activision go in this direction, and that's really make an entire city, not just a little piece of a map. Because you've got the visuals, you've got the audience, you've got the ambition, clearly. Make an open world shooter. You know what I mean? Like, do a Cyberpunk, a whole city, or New York with 3 different islands, or whatever have you. And let's really go for it. An open world Call of Duty to the fullest extent. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, pleasantly enjoyed that.
Cool. And whereabouts have you completed that yet? Or have you hit the...
No,
There's a specific mission I want to ask you about, but I don't want to spoil...
No, because
where you are.
So I'm an achievement hunter, for those that don't know. So I've been trying to get all the achievements, which involve every open mission. I've got to use all the armaments in a certain order, collect all the weapon caches and all of that stuff. But because I'm playing it on veteran also to double up the achievements, I think what's happening is I've got to go about it with finishing the game first on veteran, then dialing the difficulty down to easy. Then I can go and do all this side mission collectible stuff. Whereas I've been spending too much time trying to do both at the same time, and I keep getting killed, and it's just not working out.
Right.
But I'm on the 3rd level, so not too deep into it, but I did get distracted with our game of the week, Astro Bot. So that's kind of taken over my life at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We played a little bit of Crime Boss together very briefly.
The cracks did start showing.
It did. It did.
I don't know what it was.
I think we had a BS moment and said no.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll dip back into it. I think our patience was just a bit worn.
I don't know what it was.
Completed. No, the guy glitched. There was a specific level. You meant to escort a guy down from a freeway. He glitched. We went too fast and he got lost. He even disappeared. The guy just disappeared somewhere. And that was it. And we were like, nah, that's enough. Because we'd have to have restarted all of that. I'm sure we'll end up going back to it at some point, but it is what it is. I guess I'll talk very briefly. I don't really need to step over Soccer Story. I've done that before. But I did start to play, and this was all by accident. Because I was like, well, why have 2 platformers on the go at any one time? Doesn't really make too much sense. Well, the other half was adamant they were going to watch New Girl on series in the lounge. And I was like, you know what? I've got that new Xbox controller, the Sky Cypher. Let me link that up to my Meta Quest 3, or Horizon Quest 3 now, what it's called. They keep changing the name of the thing.
They changed the name?
It's now called Horizon Quest or something like
God's
that.
sake.
Anyway, I thought I'd give another go at the cloud gaming on VR to see if it got any better, because when I first gave it a try whilst it was in beta, I was getting a little bit of input lag and it just wasn't there. So I gave Super Lucky's Tale a go, and I know it's an old game. It's actually not that bad. I think
really
I
good.
slagged it off last week. But it's because I think I played when it was out on the original one, and this I don't know whether it's
So
the version with the DLC or what
no.
they've done
Funny,
to it.
funny story actually. So Super Lucky's Tale, you're right. It did come out on Game Pass on the Xbox One, but there was a number of issues with it. The biggest one being the camera. You cannot move the camera. It would always be a fixed camera facing sort of forward. You can move a little bit left, a little bit right, but you can never do a 360 around if you wanted to look around a corner or something.
Yeah,
And then instead of just fixing it or patching it in, they re-released the game under new Super Lucky's Tale. And it fixed that, and I think there's a couple of other... I think they gave it 4K polish once the One X came out and stuff like that. But yeah, I actually finished the first iteration, which was annoying, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It really is a fun game.
yeah, it was pretty good. I wouldn't say it reinvented the wheel or did anything particularly.
It's Astro
It
Bot.
played very much similar, yeah.
It's Astro Bot.
But it was good. It actually, in terms of how Xbox Cloud is performing on the VR now, it's been pretty sturdy for me on any other device. It was just the VR for some reason. Maybe it was the way of which it was wirelessly streaming to the headset that it just wasn't fully capable. Now it seems to be totally fine. And where they've done a big UX update, seemingly Zuckerberg saw what was in the Vision Pro, in the way that you lay out your windows and all of this other stuff. They've took some inspiration from Apple and have done a UX update that a lot of that stuff that you see on the Vision Pro now, the Quest 3 can do it. So I can then have, I think I put something up on X where I was listening to an episode of the podcast whilst I can still play a game or have multiple windows up at the same time and do all of that jazz. So, but yeah, it was good. I've enjoyed it. Have I seen the best looking version of that game streaming it? Of course not, but I don't think it's one of those ones that you really need to see the ultimate best graphics with it. But there we go. So
All right, there probably are a couple of people out there that really want to.
Well, I've seen a new app that's came out, and it is, for me, for work-wise, it's called Fluid, and it is a game changer. So it adds now the ability, you can add as many windows as you want, or as many as it before it starts slowing down. So you can imagine
MetaQuest?
onto the MetaQuest, so I can have browser windows all around the house, or have like 12, 14 screens in front of me. But if I'm doing research or something like that, it's perfect to have all of that up in one, view.
Do you think life is ready for that kind of work environment yet? Because I've always thought about this. I'm like, it's cool in concept. Like, you go into the kitchen and maybe you got your emails open, so while you're microwaving something, you can browse it. But realistically, do we want to do that while we're working? Have to get up and then we go and check the window in the bloody kitchen and, oh, hang on a second, I left my spreadsheet in the garden.
I don't think I've got it set up that I've got, as if I've got a desk with tons of monitors. Mm-hmm. So I've got mine set up that there's around about 7 or 8 screens.
Wow.
And I've also got this screen that allows me to dictate, because the text-to-speech on this app is incredible. So if I'm dictating or taking notes, it does it better than back in the days on the CD-ROM, the Dragon Speech interpreter software. Yeah. This thing's so accurate, and I'm about to start doing a really intensive piece of research work, and I've just discovered this thing right at the right time.
Can you actually get work done, or do you find that you're messing with the app more than you should do? Because my thing's this: it's like there's all these ideas out there on ways to work and tools and bits of hardware and that, but most of the time I find that stuff takes too long to set up and get going, and having this learning curve, whereas I could have been spending that last hour working, not messing with the tools. You know what I mean?
So this particular app allows you to set up that particular space for what you're doing, and it remembers it. So I've set one up for research, so I've got like loads of these,
like a
preset, and I've got it loaded up with several different AI LLMs on the screen as well. And and then it will remember that configuration, and I can set a configuration up for something completely different, which is kind of cool, and it remembers it for next time. But anyway, we're talking productivity on a gaming podcast.
That's Productivity Weekly coming soon.
Coming soon, the offshoot. But anyway, let's get into Astro Bot then. So,
why'd you buy it on a whim? That's the first question.
Why did I buy it on a whim?
You're an impulsive purchaser, aren't you?
I am 100% an impulsive purchaser. That's why I bought an iPhone 16, because it was pink. But
anyway, but you needed it. You had an SE.
I did need a new phone.
That's a bit, yeah.
But I found out all the Apple Intelligence stuff doesn't even launch when the phone comes. Yeah, it's like several months down the line.
No, October.
Oh, is it? I was not too far away then.
I installed iOS 18 a few days ago. It's coming in 18.1 in October.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, doke. But yes, I did buy it on a whim. Why did I buy it on a... It was interesting.
Because you saw it on the shelf.
Pull the trigger on it.
You saw it on the shelf in the supermarket, and you said...
Well, I went to Argos.
You went to Argos?
Asda didn't have it. Asda didn't have it. They're like several days behind putting new games on their shelf. But Argos had it. And I think what it was... it was a culmination of a lot of things. A lot of people were saying great stuff about it. So there was that. Then I think I had a crappy day where things weren't going to plan. I was like, fuck it. Oh, excuse my language. And I just decided to go out and buy it. And I'm glad I did. But it's interesting that you say, because I definitely played Astro's Playroom, some of it, when I got the PS5, with the other half. Yet, I couldn't remember much of that at all. So I've stepped into Astro Bot, even though I even played some of the VR version of this game, and looked at it from a very fresh set of eyes, where I think that you, because you've played more of Astro's Playroom, it may feel like more of the same for you.
It's absolutely more of the same. It's just bigger. There's a bit more in the way of story, whereas Astro's Playroom is it's a whole game dedicated to paying homage to PlayStation, essentially. So there's sort of 4 worlds. World 1 is the PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4. And then once you've got all the collectibles from those 4 worlds, it kind of puts together as the PS5, which, considering it was a launch game that came free, makes sense. Yeah. But I think what I really liked about the freebie, Astro's Playroom, is that the collectibles were a lot more meaningful. Yes, you were still collecting or rescuing the bots, but instead of random jigsaw puzzle pieces, you were picking up like a PS1 memory card. And then in 3D, it will be on your screen. You could use the 6-axis controller to kind of turn the controller and see around the memory card and look at all the intricate angles and stuff like that. But there were some really cool accessories that I had completely forgotten about, like the iToy on PS2. There was what was it called? There was the light gun on PS1, and then there was the light gun on
PlayStation Move.
There was the Move as well on the PS4. Yeah. And then they even had like little the slim versions as well, so PS2 Slim and then the PS3 Slim. And then as you're collecting all of this hardware in the game, it kind of collects into the central area, which is similar to the base in Astro Bot itself. And by the end of it, you just have this massive room full of every PlayStation accessory you can imagine.
Yeah.
And you can literally interact with them as well. So you can walk up to like a PS1 Slim and push like the eject button, and the flap opens up and all this stuff. So it's really cool. If you like your sort of gaming history, I definitely recommend going back and playing that. I actually am, because I stumbled across the game in my profile the other day and realized they put out an update. So there's like a bunch of trophies that now I have to get.
Oh, was that? Okay.
Oh, I 100%ed it, and now it's at 93. So I'm like, oh, for God's sake.
Oh, they're going to do that again for this, by the way.
Probably.
Well, they 100% are, because they've confirmed that before the end of this year, they were going to be adding some extra free content to the game.
Oh.
So these are focusing on people that like to do speed runs on levels. So they're either going to add a speed run to existing levels as an option, like a time trial thing, or they're going to add some extra levels that focus on that. I'm not sure.
You know what? You've just reminded me. There was speed running on Astro's Playroom. There was like the last 5 achievements, I think. It was only like 5 levels. I think what they're going to do is take that and just make it a lot larger.
Right, okay.
But it wasn't too bad, actually. And I think, if I remember correctly, it wasn't the whole level. It's just like a section of a level. And they'll put enemies in strategic places for you to kind of navigate. I mean, obviously not killing them because it's quicker just to run through them, but yeah, it's actually not that bad. I'm not a massive fan of speedrunning. I feel like it's a cop-out to get people to play your game more without having to do any work.
Yeah.
But as far as speedrunning goes, it's not bad.
Yeah. Interesting. It is what I found really... I think one of the things that I did find interesting is just how... Well, one... I've never... And Astro's Playroom did an incredible job of it anyway, but it just reminded you how well that this developer can work with the DualSense controller to bring you just every single material has its own sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the steps of the bot and everything that you touch is interactive. That's why I was really enjoying the levels that you have to go and get all of the bots in and the puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked just exploring every nook and cranny of those levels.
Yeah. It's
That
a very
was
cool,
really...
It's a very cool combination because it does it extremely well because obviously you've got the speaker in the controller and you've got the haptic feedback. And I think just one of those on its own doesn't fool your brain enough into feeling and hearing the material. So if you're walking across a tin can, you'll get the tink, 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 tink.
Yeah.
But the haptic being so quick and sharp and precise as your feet kind of take those steps across the tin can, it adds that element to make you believe that, oh yeah, this is a tin can without a doubt, or grass or gravel or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the same with water as well. The water splashes comes through the controller, and it just makes me realize that Sony were very right into investing into that technology earlier on, because we haven't seen a lot of games really utilize it. In fact, most games on the Sony side utilize it through menu sound effects.
Right.
So if you hit start game, it will come through the pad instead of, GTA did a good example of it. You had the police sirens coming through the pad, which added another, because if you think about it, it's a 3D element, right? You can move the pad around your head and you'll hear the sirens. But also on the PS4, the light bar on the back of the controller would flash blue and red as well to kind of give it that fourth dimension. So I think more games definitely do need to do it.
Yeah.
I think it will become more of a staple feature when Xbox do it because we know those games are built simultaneously. And if they have to do it across the board, then
People are more likely to...
bit more effort. Yeah. You have to have a wide adoption for them to spend time and money building something like this. Whereas if you release... And this is why I was a bit worried about Microsoft releasing a haptic pad just randomly the other month. If they do that, okay, fine, you'll get a number of people buying it. But for a very small percentage of the market, are developers going to go back and A, patch that in? Probably not. And B, bring out a future game utilizing it when most of the population doesn't have it? No.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things that you need the pad to come out with the new generation so everyone's got it. And the fact that it's on the Sony side now and later on it'll be on the Xbox side, now it's a widely adopted feature because Switch has already got the haptics there as well. So if there is a game that can be ported to the Switch, then they'll have the haptics at least. And then if they throw a speaker in it, then all three major platforms have it.
Yeah.
So it's an adoption thing.
So when Xbox do bring this controller out, do you think they should release a game that really exhibits what all that it has to offer, even if it's a freebie?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think a great example of that game, they've got two options really. They can make Super Lucky's Tale their Astro Bot. They absolutely can. It's not a hard one. But that's just copying PlayStation.
Yeah.
I think this is perfect actually, I think they should release Crash Bandicoot 5 since they got Activision. Yeah. Make it an Xbox exclusive, make it Game Pass, or heck, just release it free on every Xbox like PlayStation did. Yeah. And let that showcase the controller. You know what I mean? Every time Crash spins, the little wind effect comes through the pad, the haptics through the little materials, I think that's a great way you can do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see whether they can crack the... If they do it, I'd love to see them to crack the battery life problem, though.
Yeah.
You think surely they've got some... Now, given the amount of years that controller's been out, there has to be some way of being able to put in I don't know, like some new battery technology. Maybe they should ask Elon. I don't know.
Built by Tesla. No, I think the battery situation is isolated to Sony only because they've got all this extra stuff in there, but historically, even when you turn it off, the lights, the speaker, and the haptics and all that, it doesn't really increase it by much. You know, it's if in actuality, haptic uses less battery than the traditional vibrating motors.
Right.
Because haptic is pin sharp, it's one tap or multiple taps, but it's very precise. Whereas vibrating motors that the Xbox still uses, there's a ramp up to get to the vibration hardness before it ramps down again. So in theory, it uses a lot more power to get to that point where you start to feel it. So that's why also phones have started using haptics. It's just way better battery life as well. So the fact that, you know, I think it's a Sony problem. They've historically always had a very small middle of their controllers, which is historically where the batteries are stored. Whereas Xbox has a big center.
Yeah. So going back to the game then, I think the critical acclaim, there's no doubt about the critical acclaim with this. I think, what was the Metacritic average? It was around about 94?
94,
in places. Do you think they've got caught in the hype with the scoring of this? Do you think that's little on the high side, perhaps?
Yeah, I think 94 is extremely high. It's an amazing game. One of the best platformers I've ever played, for sure.
Yeah.
But 94 is putting it up there with the likes of Red Dead Redemption. You know, a game that is like one of the best ever made. Is it? No. It's nowhere near Red Dead Redemption levels of good. It's polished as hell. Beautiful. Bug-free, which is very rare these days.
Yeah.
Innovative technology. But we're still walking around collecting stuff and finishing levels. It does it well. Don't get me wrong. It does it very well. It does it very creatively.
Well, speaking of which, I think that the bird bot in this is great. I just think that they've kind of looked at it and said, well, people are going to pay the price for this game. Let's give them a chance to really experience a lot of stuff that because there are some things I've meticulously looked at every inch, especially in those opening levels, every inch. And I still managed to miss either a robot here or there or a puzzle piece. So the fact that you can go back into that level, pay 200 coins, get the bird bot, which like sonars where that piece is, allows you to kind of get in more of the completion with the actual game itself. The challenge levels, God.
Okay.
They are. This is where I'm at the point of this game now where it's gone from being the most beautiful, super interesting experience that one of the best experiences that I've had this year out of the games that I've played, to now taking me to a point where I'm getting really annoyed. And I'm like, you've given us this bird bot, and I'm like, I thought you were gonna. So I thought maybe if you died 50 times in a row on a level, it might say, well, we'll help you out a bit. But it doesn't. So I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get past. There is a distinct possibility that I may hit a point that I just get stuck on that I can't get past just because of my skill level.
So those challenge levels, I don't think they're mandatory. So
no, they're not. But to get the platinum.
But to get the platinum, the 100%, yeah, absolutely. Triangle levels, I didn't find too hard. The circle ones definitely put up a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I just got to the square ones yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I had to turn it off, mate.
Yeah.
And I don't normally do that. The level of fury that was going. The first one I did as well. I didn't get a couple done, then meet my maker. No, this was like straight away. I'm just like, oh, to hell with this. You know what it felt like? It felt like Super Mario Maker.
Oh, really?
You know, someone's random like, oh, you're never going to beat this kind of level. It just felt like that. I'm like, what are we doing now?
Oh, really?
Oh, God. I might pop a YouTube video on just to see someone do it, because there's a bit I'm just like, I have no idea how to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those levels are not becoming fun anymore.
And what are the? Because you're further ahead than me now. I'm stuck on the snake boss. I've only given it a few attempts. I'm sure I'll be fine. I just need to learn the patterns and I'll be all right with it. Do the levels that I enjoy the most, which is finding the bots on each level and all of that stuff, do they increase and dial up quite significantly on difficulty, or are they quite consistent throughout?
No, that difficulty-wise, they're consistent. The only thing that I think I've noticed changing is just the vastness of it. So rather than it be kind of, a typical level on one plateau, on one plane, there's a level, for example, it's like floating flower pots. And so the whole level is like floating flower pots, and you've got to figure out to get to the next flower pot. Sometimes you dig, sometimes you'll fly over with a power up or something. Sometimes the friendly giant robot thingamajig comes along and you got to traverse him. There's, that stuff is really cool. There's another one as well. There's an underwater level, which was the first I'd seen, where the whole level practically like 90% of it's underwater. So that adds another dimension. The robots are all scattered underwater, like you can't find them. And there's an octopus under there, and that was new. So they've got the formula for keeping the levels new and fresh, and because this isn't a small game. This isn't Astro's Playroom. That game was very small.
Right.
You could get that whole game done in one sitting if you really wanted to. But this, I think, now that they're charging $50 for it, they kind of have an obligation to say, okay, we've got to make it worth people's while. People that want the challenge, there are those levels as well. But people that don't want it, you can go down this route as well. But then you've got the other collectibles like the gachas as well. So if you've got enough coins, you can get the gacha models and fill out your base. And there's the lost levels as well, which those are very cool. Those are not much different in terms of difficulty, but I want to see what happens when I finish that world, because I got a feeling something cool will happen.
Yeah.
But there's enough here that it's not overwhelming, but it does tick all the boxes. The question I think really is just within you, is it worth the 50? I definitely, it's a tough one, because this, in my opinion, it's like, I want to say it shouldn't be worth 50 because of what it is.
Yeah.
But I can see the love, care, and attention to detail that the developers have put in. So it's like, I kind of want to reward them. And it's the same with the scoring as well. It doesn't deserve being a 94, being up there with some of the best games ever made. But at the same time, if it's not 94, then what is it,
Yeah.
An 88 might seem a bit too low. A 90 might seem a bit too high. I don't know. It's a weird one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I thought, personally, the 55 price was just for that level of detail, the care and the attention in it. It immediately was... I think one of the biggest criticisms the game had was, you can bust through this game in about 8 hours. 8 hours for 55 quid. But realistically, you're obviously playing that to smash through it as quickly as possible, when actually there's just so much nice things to look around on each level that I'd be interested to see how many hours I put into it, because it's definitely more than 8, and I'm only on the third boss. So
how are you finding the length of the levels? Because that's always an interesting conversation. Is it too long, too short, just right?
I think that in general they seem about right, but then some are longer than others.
Yeah.
In places.
Yeah.
Some are really short by comparison to others, and then others are a little bit longer. For me, I think that's, I prefer more of those types of levels where you would collect the bots and the puzzle pieces versus the challenge levels. But yeah, in essence, I think it's definitely worth 55. The quality's there, and I think that's how. It's not like I go out and buy a brand new game, and pay 55 much ever. I mean, usually it's one time a year and it's FIFA, unless a GTA game comes out or something like that. And now with Game Pass being about, some of those other games that you wouldn't perhaps do that for, you don't need to anymore. But yeah, I think there's enough there. I think in total it's like 80. If you include the challenge levels, there's like 80 levels there. I'd say that's a fair bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Even if I've come close to smashing a pad a few times. But
well, I think it's funny because even though we don't want those levels, you kind of need them to make you. Otherwise, it'd be too easy.
You do feel a real sense of achievement when you do pass it.
Yeah.
But I've not sworn at a game quite like this.
Yeah.
For a long time, I still can't get through that Crumble Rumble 3, where you got to get the bells to fall through the.
I finally got to
map.
that. Finally got to it. It's frustrating because yes, the damn. You know what? I tell you what annoyed me. I got the bells through the floor,
and you got hit by someone on the way down.
that happens to me many times. But when I finally survived that, even I couldn't figure out how to get to the platform where the bot was at, because there's a flying enemy. There's a flying enemy above you afterwards, and I couldn't.
There?
I'm like, how the hell do I reach that? And then it just so happened I caught a glimpse on the floor of a moving bouncy platform underneath the glass. So you've got to destroy the glass enough so you can hit that bouncy platform to jump up and hit the enemy above. Yeah. You'll see. Yeah, it is a bit annoying, that level. Maybe 8, 9 tries.
And there are no checkpoints on those challenge levels either.
Nah, because they're really short.
Yeah. But
those ones I can live with, but the triangle, circle, X, square, those levels are meant to annoy you.
What's been your favourite level from what I would call the main stages so far? Mine's definitely the God of War one.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. The God of War one was amazing. I found it really interesting that one of the special stages early on is the Ape Escape one, because that's a game that we haven't... I don't think we got a remake on Ape Escape. They've remastered it so you can get it on PSN.
Yeah.
So I found that one really cool. You get the net and you can do all the same sort of moves and everything. That was really cool, kind of revisiting that, because I loved Ape Escape when I was a kid. Really enjoyed that game. Have you seen the Third World one yet? Oh yeah, you have, I think. The Uncharted one on the Third World.
I haven't. I'm literally the boss before
the snake
boss.
Yeah.
It comes after that, the first level after that. So
yeah, you'll get the Uncharted level after that. You get a gun and a hairstyle, and it's really cool. The level again, you got the Jeep flying around and plane wings you got to go across, just like an Uncharted game.
Oh really?
Yeah, and a lot of rope swinging and stuff like that. So what they've tried to do is they've tried to incorporate a lot of the mechanics from said game into that particular level. But I still think that God of War 1 just does it best with the axe and the puzzles in it as well, like freezing the cogs to get up to certain platforms. Like, that level is an exact replica. Not that level is a replica of a God of War level, but the way you would play that level is exactly how you play God of War.
Yeah.
You got to find the green ravens, Odin's ravens, and it's just phenomenal. I really want another God of War. I'm just thirsting for that game. I know they're making one, but I don't know when it's going to be announced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to see. But it was nice to, get rid of the dust and the rust off the PS5. Because it's the first thing that's made me turn the thing on for a very long time.
With everything happening with Xbox lately and me talking about moving over there full time, I was pleasantly reminded, I'm like, damn, this dashboard is clean. It's just clean. Everything just works so much quicker. And I'm like, is it as bad as I thought it would be? And then, obviously, being in the fighting game space, we got the Marvel vs. Capcom collection came out 2 days ago. I haven't bought it yet because I'm scared to jump all in. I am. And I'm like, but then again, 2025 is when it comes out over there.
Yeah.
But when in 2025? That's a 12-month gap.
Well, that's it. We don't know. Interestingly enough, there is a new update coming to the UX of the PlayStation 5. Ooh. So I think it either replaces I think it's called Welcome, or it replaces the Welcome bit on the dashboard, and now you can customize it like an Apple thing and put your favorite stuff there.
Like a widget board, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. It's my damn console. When I turn it on, I want to see my best friend, what he's doing and playing, and then I want to see news about these 3 games. I like the news section of the Switch, actually. Yeah. Every game has its own news channel, like a Discord. So if you're really into like Animal Crossing, then every time there's a piece of news about Animal Crossing, it'll show up on your dashboard or in your news section. So I like the fact that they're bringing all of that stuff into one place. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. Xbox does something similar, but they buried it so deep that no one really uses it anymore. They've got the communities section. No one uses it because it's buried about 6 layers in.
It's a great idea, but like you said, they've tried to move it forward. It's like it's on the first screen. You just got to keep hitting down to get to it, and it's like, I don't know. Xbox's dashboard really needs overhauling. It really does.
Definitely.
We don't need the big tiles anymore. It's not Windows. It's not made for a touch device. Why are they so big? Yeah. Shrink them down. I think the tiles on PlayStation are just right.
Yeah, and we found out that we could also. Not only we found out in a previous episode we could share and take over someone's game, but we can both share the game that we're playing whilst playing it at the same time.
Yeah.
which we experienced. So that was interesting from a first
Streaming while playing.
single player point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think at one point I was like, whereabouts are you? And you're trying to describe this level. And I'm like, oh, hold on a second. I can request to see your screen. And then I pinned you to my top left corner. And as I'm playing between loading and all the story elements, I'm just watching your screen. It's really interesting.
Well, especially when you're seeing people fail on challenge levels, huh?
But it's really cool, though, because you've got your headset on. You're like, how do I cross this bit? And I don't have to ask you to describe it to me. Where is it? Have you done this yet?
Yeah.
I just look and go, oh, yeah, it's over there. And that actually happened. You're like, how do I get up to this place? I'm like, oh, there's a hidden bouncy thing there.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that feature.
Well, I'm surprised. It is kind of surprising that, that feature's been there for so long. I don't know, perhaps PlayStation's patented it, possibly. I'm not sure. But, usually you get companies will borrow ideas from each other till the cows come home. Mm-hmm. But Microsoft doesn't do a lot of that.
Yeah, typically for businesses, it's more a case of, well, is it worth us dedicating enough developers? Is it going to make money? What's the return on investment? So you're more likely to see the store get an overhaul because that's their primary bread and butter,
Yeah.
But to specifically add a picture-in-picture mode, well, that's something that will come along with a complete overhaul, So I do think, though, that Xbox's next console will have an overhaul on the dashboard. It has to. It's just...
Yeah.
We can't be doing Windows 8 in 2026 by then.
No.
We can't.
No, exactly.
What are we doing?
There we go. But yes, so I think that pretty much wraps up Astro Bot for us. Like I say, there's 150 characters you can unlock. And they've all got little small things on the Crash site that you can interact with some of them and get additional achievements. Or should I say trophies.
Trophies, you've got to get used to saying that. Question for you, though, before we move on. Now that the dust has been blown off on the PlayStation, what's your next game that you're going to be playing there?
I don't know. I've got some bangers as well. I know you want me to do God of War. I know.
You've got to play God of War.
I've got The Last of Us and I've never played it.
That I've got to play, yeah.
I've even got Ghost of Tsushima.
Same. Director's cut.
Yeah, so... There's a lot there. I'm really looking forward to this extended time off I've got booked at Christmas.
You know what we can probably do? We can probably sync it like we did Astro Bot, Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah. I think that might be an obvious one we can sync.
I've got a feeling that game's going to test my patience as well.
I really don't know. I don't know how hard it is.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's going to be an easy game. I
think it's more along the lines of like an Assassin's Creed type game, if I'm honest with you. But I don't think it's going to be a Soulsborne experience at all.
We'll find out at some point. Some point in the future. If we can pry ourselves away from easy 1000G games.
And if you're on the PS5 Pro by then, and you've paid your $10 upgrade, it might be a bit of a harder pill to swallow.
Well, let's gravitate over to that, because we obviously did a separate video of the actual announcement. And it's interesting. So what's happened? What's culminated off the back of this? So they obviously announced the PS5 Pro, which has no disk drive. It doesn't even have a stand for £700. I worked it out in the UK price. So do you know the disk drives in the UK? They go for £100.
What?
Yeah,
they're $79.99.
Well, someone did the. Yeah, but someone did a calculation and said, look, even with the sales tax in America, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up as the same prices between America and the UK. The UK is paying significantly more than any other territory, even against the euro for some reason.
I think that's just the VAT.
It's decidedly expensive. So I think I worked it out that it is 840 odd quid to get a PS5 Pro with an actual disk drive and the vertical stand.
I understand.
In total.
That's tough.
Digital Foundry has said that the PSSR is pretty much, from what they're seeing, it will be for certain players really beneficial, and they say it's more like, what's it, DLSS?
DLSS
It's
on the
the
PC
closest
side,
thing, yeah. they're saying it's because it's got
Yeah.
that chip and what was it? The AMD specific AMD thing that's not even released on the PC market yet.
So that's the ray tracing, yeah.
Yeah.
So AMD's implementation of ray tracing is practically non-existent, but the fact that, we all know that AMD make the chips in Series X and PS5, they've clearly released something on the PlayStation side that hasn't even been released on PC yet.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see. But I mean, the DLSS AI upscaling is, that was a no-brainer. I think that's an obvious way how we can move forward without having to have this stupid fidelity mode or performance mode. Well, look, just make up the pixels in between and make it look good. It's working great on PC. Yeah.
Yeah. But I still don't. So.
Is it enough? Is the question, isn't it? Is it enough?
Well, this is it. They couldn't even kind of, until they got. So I think the only people that have had actual hands-on with this thing was CNET.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that they wouldn't put that in the hands of Digital Foundry. I don't know whether that's telling, perhaps.
Well,
or,
interesting thing about CNET as well, they wouldn't let them directly capture the content either.
Oh, right.
So they could film the screen using a camera, because obviously you're not going to get a one-to-one pixel.
Yeah.
You cannot analyze it. And you could film the room, and then you've got a TV with a regular PS5 and then the PS5 Pro on the left. But they wouldn't let them hook up an Elgato card to it. That's
Well, it is
telling.
interesting because even the capped selection that they used on the live broadcast, you would flood the screen with a side-by-side. But they didn't even do that. They put it in a boxed window that was about 40% of the size of the screen. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it, when they do stuff like that?
See, I didn't catch that on my first go-round, but when I went back and watched it again, I was like, hold on a second, why are you making it smaller? Surely this is the selling point of this thing. So here's what I think it is. I don't think it's because they're being dishonest about it. I said in our reaction, I think the numbers are there. Like eventually, once it's out, people will say, oh, it's an X% increase in pixels or fidelity or whatever they want to measure it as. I think it's there. I think where it's going to be a hard sell is that even though that number is, 40% better looking, is it $700 better?
Yeah.
That's the question. It's no, obviously, if you don't have a PlayStation and for whatever reason you never bought one, and now you've got the means to buy it, absolutely, this makes sense for that user, that gamer. But if you've already got one, there's going to be less than a double-digit figure of people migrating over, and most of the people buying this thing are going to be YouTubers and journalists. Let's be honest about it, because they want to review it and make videos.
Yeah,
but
and then possibly return it.
And possibly
like
return
they
it,
did with the Vision Pro.
or it will be a demo unit that they all end up just sending around.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's going to be the die-hard PlayStation fanboys that will spend this kind of money because they can and they want every pixel, and that's fine. If that works for you and that's really what you want, then fine. But I still don't think there's a need for it. There was a need for the PS4 Pro. We got 4K, we got HDR, we got bigger games. There was an actual need. But the stuff on the PS5 exists on the on the Pro exists on the PS5. It's just doing it a percentage better.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not enough for me, to be honest with you.
I wonder how many people are actually going to shift the units, because I think on the PS4 Pro, the sales weren't tremendous on the PS4
No,
Pro.
it's an enthusiast product.
Yeah.
It was an 80-20 split. But again, there was a reason. Like everyone was moving into 4K, the TV networks and broadcasting and cable platforms, and Blu-ray came out, and 4K was a big thing, Just like the 360 PS3 era, we went into HD. There was a reason to buy the console. There was a marginal shift. Like we could see, oh, that looks amazing. This, I don't know. I don't necessarily think I need to see the fidelity of the trees all the way in the distance in Spider-Man to make my experience any better.
No.
And the thing as well that I realized after the fact, after watching it a third time, because I watched this thing a few times, they're freeze framing these screenshots to prove their point, and that's fine. They're not misguiding anyone. But I think what people are not realizing is that you're not freezing the game. You're playing the game in motion. So when you're Spider-Man and you're swinging through the thing, are you really going to notice these trees? Because they're going to have motion blur and blurring effects on and all this dynamic scaling going on at the same time. Right in the middle of your screen in the distance, are you really going to see the sharpness? No one's complained about the sharpness in the distance. No one.
Yeah.
So Unless you've got an 8K TV that's 100-inch, you may see it, but these things in motion don't make sense.
No. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how many units they shift. It was quite interesting to see that apparently now it depends on how much stock is already out there. How many PS5 Slim disk drives are in circulation in the inventory right now, because apparently it ended up being like a top seller or something on Amazon.
On Amazon,
I think it's all relative. They could have just had maybe a couple hundred units of that in stock, perhaps. I don't know.
This all makes sense now. Why did they do the PS5 Slim? Not because they wanted to. They had an amazing product to release. It was a tiny bit slimmer. It was because of the disk drive.
So they got so many of them lying around. They needed to sell them.
No. I think it's the opposite. I think they had to invent a disk drive, knowing that the price of this thing was going to be high when they announced it. So how can we double it up to make it make more sense? Business-wise, it's like, okay, well, we're going to make the slim model. Everyone goes, yay, new PS5, they're advancing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, if you want a disk drive, here it is. But little do they know that R&D money went towards a future product as well, PS5 Pro.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I've got to touch upon this very, very briefly, because I think on the day that the PS5 Pro was announced, Geoff Keighley tweeted 21 times.
This is a joke.
And
he's on payroll.
There's been obviously a lot of people that say that Keighley has a PlayStation bias, because every time the Game Awards happens, Xbox always gets thrown into the dirt. I think
Game of the
Starfield has even missed nominations this year. That was just the greatest example of adding credence to people's thoughts, because we've seen a few times earlier this year where they've had layoffs, and he'll say something against the Xbox, and then it takes him 3 days later to say something about the Sony layoffs, for instance. Or bad news that happens on the Sony side.
Where it was most apparent is, all right, at first it was like, all right, mate, you want to shut up, you turn your X off today, enough tweeting for the day. Where it became apparent to me was when he started justifying the price with inflation.
Oh, yeah. With inflation.
What? Why are you doing this? Like, why do
and
you...
he got community noted for that.
And he got community noted, like, actually, when you look at it, it's actually relative. And it's like, shut up, mate. You're not on the board of directors. Like, why do you care?
I don't know.
Yeah, I before it was a funny running joke, and that's fine. If you like PlayStation, that's your platform, that's fine. You're going to tweet about what you like. That's normal human behavior. But you start sticking up for the business.
Yeah.
Now I got to question you.
Yeah.
Because people had valid points. Just sticking to the theme of the PS5 Pro, $799 or $700, whatever, plus the disc drive, plus the stand, game or two, whatever. You're in PC territory now. You really are. And I'm seeing a lot. I knew this was going to happen. I'm starting to see a lot of videos popping up on my recommended feed about building a $1,000 PC. Or even $900, and you get a better product.
Yeah.
So we knew it was going to happen. It's just a matter of, again, like you, how is this thing going to sell? I don't think it's going to sell well at all. I think it's going to be for a very slim enthusiast market, and Xbox were absolutely right to skip the mid-gen refresh.
Yeah, they're certainly looking like they've made the right move there.
Yeah, for once.
Well, that seems like a perfect pivot, but we will quickly cover that the PS5 has had a price hike in Japan.
Yep.
Of, according to the notes here, of an additional $170.
Equivalent, yeah. For the regular PS5.
Controllers have been raised by $5 in the United States. I mean, what's going on?
We got a PS5 Slim and the price stayed the same. What the hell? It just increased their profit margins.
Well, this is the thing about, and this comes full circle, and we spoke on last week's podcast about why is Microsoft literally handing the victory to Sony on a plate by pretty much giving up in the console war terms of things, with the exclusivity market and all of this stuff. Now, some analysts are saying that the reason why PlayStation has gone at this price point is because no one's competing. There's no competition. There's nothing confirmed on the Switch 2 release. Xbox doesn't have anything in the pipe, so they can set whatever price they want. And if that's the way it's going to be, then this is what we worried about, that if Microsoft doesn't have an interest in making consoles anymore, that you're going to have this situation where the price comes up, and plus you've got to buy every single bloody add-on of what you used to get as standard as a machine. So I really hope Microsoft, I don't know whether they have to change the leadership up or what, but this, again, and I'll say it again, when everyone plays, everyone wins or whatever it is, no. Just get back in there. Start being aggressive with it. Yeah. You had the opportunity to finish
Jones.
Sony off earlier this year, and you just stood there and allowed them to take a W. I mean, look what happened. It was a Concorde, hit a low. Then Astro Bot came up, hit a high. Then the PS5 Pro announcement, they've gone and probably hit a stumbling block in terms of the way in which this has been pitched out there. But if it is for the more niche market, then they're not expecting too many sales off the back of that. But I don't like the price. I really don't like the price point on it at all.
I heard a very interesting comparison as well. And that is, you've got the new Xbox, the 2 terabyte. I'm just looking at this 2 terabyte Xbox Galaxy, I think it's called, right? The 2 terabyte Xbox Galaxy model is going for $599, so it's $100 less than the PS5 Pro. Now, the PS5 Pro has a 2 terabyte SSD in it as well. Part of me's thinking that the way they're looking at it is, well, $100 of that new price goes to the 2 terabyte drive, and the other $100 goes towards the graphics enhancements. And if that's the case, financially, it does add up. But their whole marketing didn't mention anything about having an upgraded drive. It's only when you dig into the weeds afterwards and go onto the blog post, and not even at the top of the page. It's like all the way at the bottom, like, oh, besides this, we're going to have 30 patches. Oh, and that comes with a 2 terabyte hard drive and Wi-Fi 7 got an earlier mention than a 2 terabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
The whole centerpiece of PS5 was this ultra-fast hard drive. And the biggest downfall of that hard drive was the fact they launched with only 825 gig on day one. Yeah. So surely this should be way up. I don't know. Something's going on with their marketing.
Yeah.
They're probably using the same marketing firm as Microsoft, to be honest with you.
Maybe some people have moved over there, perhaps. Cause,
it definitely sounds like it.
It was interesting because obviously this week again, Microsoft have had layoffs. So this is all apparently dependent on the ABK. I kind of expect this stuff to happen. You see it, and you get mergers and acquisitions happen. So another 650 employees got laid off. Now, they're primarily in corporate and support roles. But this time, rather than release a controller with a tagline, "Feel the burn," their social media team was actually told to be quiet for the whole day. So it's almost like they've learned something from that experience, or they've actually discovered a thing called Brand Watch that allows you to check, your sentiment analysis of what people think about you.
It's a bit worrying though. You have to be told to hang on a second, guys. Today's a bad day. Don't say anything, mate. It's like when you were a kid and you go around someone's house and your parents are like, okay, listen, so and so's just died. Be on your best behavior. It's literally like that.
It doesn't surprise me that it's Microsoft that it happens at, because the way that their business decisions take place, everything's all siloed in that company. Every division, they're obviously not speaking to each other and communicating to each other very well, because time and time again we see things happen on one side of the business and then their social media team are doing something completely different. So the social media team people should be aware of what's going on around the business. That should be part of your job, to know what's happening with the business and to weigh up the optics of, is this a good idea? Is it worth me speaking to the marketing team and say, look, I know you want to sell another controller, right? But we might have to, hold fire on this for a couple of days, as to not send the wrong message out.
Yeah.
But
Do you think it's time Xbox is spun off into a separate company? Because it's almost like they've got the Microsoft politics, definitely the Microsoft checkbook, but it's like they need to get that leash off of their neck in order for them to be a gaming company. Because right now it seems business-wise, they keep making business decisions that align more with Microsoft as a global strategy rather than a gaming company.
well, this is, when you go back to the infancy, and if you watch the Xbox documentary, they were set purposely away from the rest of from the Microsoft campus.
Mm-hmm.
Something's happened since Satya's come around. The fact that they must have brought them closer into the Microsoft division again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely weird. I think they've grown too big for their offices, so to speak. It's like I can get like, how would you? I mean, I'm not a business major by any stretch, but it almost seems like they need to be their own entity to make their own decisions, both financially and investment wise.
Yeah.
And then maybe Microsoft has some form of financial stake in it, whether it's through shares or through the board or something like that. But they've got. I think it's time now that Xbox is run autonomously, with full autonomy.
Wow. I mean, you could say that you could spin it off and set its own instance on the stock market.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because then when
off of Microsoft completely.
Because I think where it doesn't make sense right now is they've got all these layoffs, and that doesn't make sense when you're part of a $3 trillion company. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like you're $3 trillion. You just bought Activision like it was a bag of crisps. Like what? Why? You're laying. You buy Bethesda 2 years before that for 7.5, and then you spend 69 on Activision. There's rumors of you buying Take-Two again floating around. What are you're not exactly hemorrhaging money. It's just because someone sat there in an office and said, okay, we think we need to be making this amount of money by this point, particular time in the calendar year. You know what I mean? And I don't know where they get that from.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think perhaps, like some of these other big companies, that they've got cost centers for different parts of the division, and they treat it like they are running their own individual budgets versus the bigger company-wide budget. So I wonder if that's how they look at it and say, look, well, on our enterprise division, this is our budget, and we've got a certain cash flow amount that we can't go over or something like that. And in order to balance that out, then we need to, make tough decisions. Yeah. And I wonder if that's how they, I wonder if that's how they operate it.
Absolutely.
In that regard. But if that was the case, why did they do so many acquisitions if they knew how much it was going to cost? Surely they'd know that at some point that they were going to have to contract.
And this is it. It's like it doesn't take a genius to work out the fact that the more people you fire, the less the games get made. Because games don't make themselves. And 650 people is not a low number. It's 650 this time, and then last time, what was it? 7,000 people got laid off at the beginning of the year or something. It was a massive layoff beginning of the year.
I know it was well over like 1,700.
Something like that. And then last year, majority of 343 got let go of because of the whole Halo Infinite debacle.
Yeah.
So there's a very core team left at 343 right now. And actually, just the other day, I got a random notification on LinkedIn looking. I can't remember what the position was called, but they're hiring at 343. Yeah. So they're starting to ramp up again. It's just, I don't know it. I don't like Microsoft specifically for this reason. So that's
there seems to be sentiment in the games industry at the moment that even a lot of people that were, it was their dream career, and they're starting to go, well, there's just not enough stability around at the moment. And people are seriously considering just getting out of game development altogether.
And that's what's scary. You keep doing this just to hit a target by a particular quarter, then you're absolutely putting that sentiment out there that, okay, once you pass that quarter and you hit your quote-unquote target, how are you going to hire 650 people back to make those games again? Because that's all this is. This is just a form of cooking the books. So you can say to your shareholders, "Oh, we had to cut take the head off of this over here to save money to, hit target. We hit target. Now we're going to hire them back to make the damn games again."
Well, there's no guarantees they're going to get the same quality of people back.
This is it, and this is where I think I think part of this they're going to heavily rely on AI to do a lot of it.
Oh, that's a big reason for a lot of the layoffs. Oh, industry wide, they're thinning things out. They're doing the same stuff that what used to cost take 20 people to do down to a team of 6 or something like that.
But there's not been a transition. That's the thing. It's like, what does an AI game look like? What do the roles and the responsibilities of AI versus humans? Where's the cutoff point? You know what I mean? Because at some point, someone's got to sit there.
Yeah.
Like an AI can do tasks. When computers started first becoming mainstream, there was a very common phrase that used to go around, and that is, computers are dumb. They'll only do what you tell them to do. And for the longest time, that was the case. So when people say, "Oh, computers don't work," it's like, well, no, you're not doing what you need it to do for it to do its part. But AI has kind of changed that. Now you can just say, "Write me a story," and it won't ask you what story, how many characters, how long do you want. It will just give you a story. So it will do that thinking for you. But how much does it know about game development? You can say, make a story, but it's going to be for a game. But we have to think about a game because first and foremost, it's got to be fun, and then you've got to think about, it's got to have a certain level of replayability. Is there going to be collectibles? Is it multiplayer? What platform is it going to be on? There's so many factors to think about, and we haven't seen a full AI game be released yet to know that this is going to work.
There's been snippets of stuff, artwork. There's been the progressive AI commentary that was in the finals.
Procedurally
so live
generated.
Commentated.
That's
what's going on in the match, which is cool. That's actually a really cool feature. I think it will be a boilerplate, so it will take out a lot of that manual coding that did exist, and then you'll have your serious coders will go in there and refine and build in, and they might use prompt engineering rather than necessarily do the syntax manually to finite some stuff. So there's a way for them to be able to cut down the number of people to be able to do it. I guess the big question is what we're seeing especially on both on the written side of things and even on the content creation side of things now, is that there's a lot of originality that's being lost. Everyone's copying the exact same format for everything. You look at all of the AI content on YouTube Shorts and all of that stuff, everything looks the same.
Yeah.
There's not like any original content out there. I looked at the AI. I can spot an AI generated written article now so easily because it's all written in the same type of structure. So unless you use a bit more of an ambiguous language model, one of the ones that are lesser known, that perhaps are a little bit better at doing creative writing, you can tell an AI written post because it's just the way it's even structured. It's like, that's not really how properly a human writes. It's more written like learner instruction, things like that.
There's a specific template and guide it follows.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is those lines will become even more blurred as the models. I mean, we got ChatGPT Model 01 the other day as well. So that's specifically for design and coding.
Yeah.
So I haven't used it yet, and I code day to day. So I'm wondering, like, how's that going to make my life easier? So,
well, I think when 5 comes out, that's going to be the next shift, and
I think
that's when
together.
When 5 comes out, I think we're really going to start to see the layoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen. It's a scary time. It's a real scary decade. I mean, we've had the weirdest decade that I've ever lived.
Yeah.
And we're not even into the 5th year of it yet. It's going to be like this for the whole decade. Everything's we're living through the biggest transformational period of time that you can live in since the Industrial Revolution, I think.
I think where it all went downhill for me is when the buses stopped taking cash. As soon as it was digital only, that was it. I was like, oh no, this is I don't know. I used to walk onto the bus with my 2 10p pieces and 20p's. That was it. I
don't know. We all yearn for simpler times. That's the way things are like.
While lusting for everything.
I was saying I left a comment for someone on Medium because we now have a Medium blog, and the guy wrote an article about why is just gaming not all that exciting anymore? Why is it? And I think I know because there's no anticipation. There's no, back when a game would come out, and I talked about like the midnight launch, but it's with a lot of other things as well. So there's the fact that there's no anticipation anymore because once you've ordered it, you've already seen everything it can do before you get it, because people get the stuff early and people make videos of stuff, Like once you've watched a Marcus Brownlee video on the latest iPhone, you've pretty much seen everything it can do. There's none of that, physically going down there, that in anticipation, queuing up with people, getting that experience. Everyone's super excited about, waiting outside the store for stuff. It's all instant. And I think it takes a lot of that, that excitement away.
Yeah, but it's also like what we were saying earlier. It's just every game, everything's the same now, right? So I think what's happening is that rather than these developers making games, making things that we like, certain type of single player games, and I think that's partly why Sony's been so successful with their single player lineup. Now they're all focused on these massive free to play online multiplayer games, right? And I get it; it makes sense for the business, but once you've played one, you've played them all. Hence why Concord failed. It's simple as that. PUBG was huge because it started off as a mod and everyone's like, whoa, what's this? 100 live players, there's something here. But now, Call of Duty and Fortnite dominate those two markets. Yes, there's a few others, but they haven't taken off the same way.
No.
And so I think once developers stop wasting money on trying to figure out how to make more money, because that's what they're really doing. It's like, let's spend money, hire a group of analysts, figure out how we can make more money. And then what it's going to come back to is, well, that failed, so let's just what we were doing before, make great single player games. You know? Make your Grand Theft Autos, make your fighting games, make your there's so many franchises out there. And I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think we are slowly starting to come back full circle now.
Yes, we are.
Because you're seeing companies like Night Dive making a full living, studio-wide living off of remastering and remaking older titles. Why? Because people want them. Those were the good times. I used to, we were talking about this, I think, were we talking about this on the last episode? You told me that there's a Croc remaster happening. I love Croc. It's one of my childhood favorites, on the PS1. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm absolutely going to buy that day one. It just, to me, makes sense. The Turok 1, 2, and 3 remakes. System Shock, for God's sake. One of the biggest, cult followings on an FPS game from the 90s. And it's finally on console, and they're working on System Shock 2, So Doom keeps getting remakes. Heck, we've got an entirely new direction on Doom now, with Dark Ages coming around the next year. Just do what we want. We're the customer. We'll tell you what we want. Read the comments.
Well, it's not hard.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. Well, I think also as well, I think the industry does need... Also, they talk a lot about DEI... But it's like, well, if you want a diverse and inclusive company, then you need people that have different viewpoints as well. So you can't have both. You can't have one and not the other, basically, because you're then stymieing what could be very interesting storylines and plots that will never find their way into games if everyone thinks
the same.
Of the progressive left, for instance, and not the other way, what the other side of politics. Yeah. But this industry is flooded in a politically orientated direction that's just one way. So you're not gonna, you're gonna end up starting to get cookie cutter experiences like that all the time.
We're already there.
Well, we're already there. We've seen time and time again, and it's like, well.
And I think what's happening is that you're having an adverse effect as well, because then you start to go across that bridge of, well, I make games for a living, but I don't make games that I like. I'm not doing my favorite kind of creative work. I have to make someone else's vision because that's what the common belief is. Do you know what I mean? It's like anything creative, whether it's art, music, movies, video games, heck, even coding a website, you've got to enjoy it for the best work to shine. If the person making that product believes in what they make, they like it, they have a thirst for it, then the end result, you're going to see it, the fit and finish. Right? Yeah. But then when you start getting teams together who just a group of people who know how to code, and it's like, all right, guys, I'm glad we're all here, all 100 of you. All right, now let's make an open world free live service, Fortnite clone. And it's like, oh, for God's sake, all right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Then you're going to start to get that attitude, and it's going to flop.
Yeah.
So it's just human nature, I think.
Stop copying themes. What we've had this year is the re-cookie cutter, what is it? We're in this Souls-like theme now, and this has happened with games all the time. Every year there is a common theme of games, and people end up coming out creating the same stuff. It's like, what?
I think we've got
why are we doing that?
25 Animal Crossing clones coming out on the horizon from
With that, and then when Elden Ring came out, all of a sudden every game wants to be a Souls-like, including a crab.
Yeah.
It's like what are we doing? What are we doing?
And that's
Anyway.
you're absolutely right. It's a testament to why Astro Bot's doing so well, because it takes gaming back to its pure core. It's a platformer. I collect stuff. It looks good. There's a few new bits. It's fun. Doesn't tell me to go online and buy stuff. Doesn't tell me, I need to buy 35 expansion packs to get the latest capes and flipping hats and stuff. It's just a platformer. It's what we grew up on.
There is a £9.99 costume.
But that's optional. It's not a microtransaction. It's an add-on. So those I can deal with. If you're stupid enough to go want to do that, then that's your prerogative. But yes, anyway.
Anyway, there's been some interesting. So we said about Microsoft perhaps learning a little bit about their PR side of things. Mm-hmm. Well, they just the moment when it looked like they might have turned the corner, there's another problem. So I distinctly remember reading a post. It was either from Xbox Wire or some post from Xbox. It might not have been on Xbox Wire, where it clearly explained the new Game Pass tiers, because when they first brought the image out showing the differences between the two, everyone got confused. So it cleared up all of that confusion. I cannot find that article for Love Nor Money anymore. It doesn't exist. Yet when you go on the FAQs of Game Pass, it doesn't tell you that the version of standard, that you're gonna have titles. So it was very clear that you don't get day one on Game Pass standard for new releases. But what it doesn't make clear is the fact that it's also going to take away a bunch of games that's on the higher tier that's already been released. So if you're on the legacy plan, like both of us are, because we haven't cancelled, there's games like Diablo 4. I mean, we've got a whole list on here, which, there's a good chunk of them you couldn't really care less whether they're gone or not.
Read the big ones out. Read the big ones out.
I'll read the big ones out. Modern Warfare 3. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. Diablo 4. Mm-hmm. Forza Motorsport. Kunitsugami, you could argue perhaps because it's quite new.
MLB The Show.
Octopath Traveler, which was very popular on the Switch. That's missing. You've got the second version of Slime Rancher, Starfield.
Hellblade 2.
And Hellblade 2. So these are games that are no longer day one by any stretch of the imagination, and you don't get them on standard. So you have to have the Ultimate to get those types of what it doesn't even make that much sense, because you've got games like Flock, Creatures of Ava, Botany Manor. Like, these aren't games that are what I would call top tier experiences, but these are missing as well. So
Botany Manor. Oh god, missing out.
so those are missing as well, and there's nowhere on the FAQs explaining why they've been removed. So they've done it again. Now, whether they're going to put them back on, but this is the current, in the moment, what's happening right now as we record this, latest melodrama in the Xbox world. Because obviously people are looking at that and saying, well, hang on, you've changed these tiers. You've now downgraded my experience that had I kept myself on Legacy, I would be getting a better proposition at the moment. Yeah. So, again, Xbox unable to clearly explain their decisions. Or they did, but now you can't find the article because it's buried somewhere in the sea of Xbox.com. Which...
Yeah, I think what's happened is people at Microsoft have realized, like, well, if we keep this information out there, then people are just going to stay on Legacy. They're not going to move anywhere. And I think what they want to do is have people move over there. You know what's going to happen? Anytime there's a price change, I think there's got to be some sort of legal ramifications around this, that you cannot just move people. You have to offer them an alternative. You have to grandfather them in. And I think it's normally grandfathering is minimum of a year. And what will happen is 12 months from today, we'll start to see messages popping up in our email going, we're shutting down what you're on. You've got choices. We believe in choice for our gamers, and they'll sell it that way. And now I've got to pay an extra $5. So
yeah. Well, here's the thing, because I'm grandfathered in like you are. Now, And I was trying to calculate this up in my head, and it's like, well, technically I'm grandfathered in, and they're honouring what we're currently getting
For now.
But then I was like, well, off the Game Pass subscriptions. Well, last month I probably got my money's worth out of it because Modern Warfare 3 took the stage. But this month, I've not really touched anything. Well, okay, tell a lie. The Super Lucky's Tale, I just happened to boot that up. But I'd say more often than not, most months, I'm not tapping into my Game Pass library. I'm tapping into all the stuff I've bought.
So you're forgetting something.
Well, the online play.
No, there's the online play, but more importantly, so you're saying this month you haven't remembered what comes out on the 30th.
Well, Shattered Space.
There you go. So you're going to be downloading Starfield again. So there's your $70 game right there. No, I get it.
Is the Shattered Space included on Game Pass as well?
No, I think Shattered Space will be a paid DLC, but you have to have the main game installed, which will be the part that's free.
Yeah.
So even if last month you paid your, $15 for Game Pass to play Call of Duty, okay, you didn't touch anything this month. You've only paid half price for a Call of Duty game instead of the full 60. So you still technically are not really paying more. You're still paying less. Plus you get online, and plus you got that feeling of being elite, like, if I wanted to, I could.
It's a smorgasbord of choice. You just know it's there if you do want to.
If I want to play, what was it, Botany
Manor, I can still
if
play.
I want to play Botany Manor 2, then that's my choice as a human being. I want to have the choice of playing it.
I don't know. It's a couple of quick small stories for you before we finish off on talking a little bit memories wise. I think we'll finish off talking a little bit on the Dreamcast. Interesting. We said that it was an open goal that Activision had missed. The fact that they basically said no to doing the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 collection, which would have been 3 and 4 in a game. It was pitched. Activision turned it down. It was easy, low-hanging fruit for them to make money. Well, Tony Hawk has appeared on the Mythical Kitchen podcast, and he's revealed that he's been in communication with Activision. Now, what's coming up is the 25th anniversary of the first Tony Hawk's game. So he was on this podcast, and he said the following. He said, I wish I could tell you more, but I can tell you that I've been talking to Activision again, and we're working on something. So it's not completely dead. There is possibility. It's possible we're going to see another form of a Tony Hawk game happening. Now, whether it's a fresh new experience that I hope's better than 5, because that was awful, or are we going to see maybe the bangers, like the banger levels across the whole series of the Tony Hawk's games, perhaps? It looks like something's going to be happening. What it is, I don't know, but I'm excited for it, and I hope that they... Was it Vicarious?
Vicarious, yeah.
Vicarious, I think, did the the version of the Tony Hawk's reboot where you weirdly couldn't play it online. And if you had a version that was on X and S and all this random
So
stuff.
to me, it sounds like it's going to be Tony Hawk 6, because you don't need to get in contact with Tony Hawk to bring out an old game. You can just send an agreement over and he'll sign it for whatever fee he wants.
Yeah.
And you can remaster it in your own way, AI. But it sounds like to me they actually want to model him in the current stop motion. I don't know. I think I sit on opposite ends with when it comes to Tony Hawk's 3 and 4, because correct me if I'm wrong, but they weren't the most popular games. I think after 2 it took a dramatic dive, and people bought 3 and then realized, oh, hang on a second, what's this? And then 4 didn't really do much to pick up, and there may be some nostalgia there for some people, but I think 3 and 4 weren't the ones that people have the fondest memories of. 1 and 2, absolutely. There was a time period that the PS1 and Dreamcast and everything, people just loved gaming, and there are music tracks missing from that first collection that I'm a little bit annoyed about.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it did scratch that itch.
I want the underground games back.
I don't think
Saying that, I can just pick them up for the Xbox, but it is like playing them with cataracts.
Well, if you're lucky, well, yeah. I was going to say, because I had that same feeling with Beyond Good and Evil. Oh, I have Beyond Good and Evil as a 360 digital title.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, why the hell is this game so popular? So I went and dug it out, and I'm looking at the screenshots. I'm like, this looks like arse. Like, what is this game? And hang on a second, let me give it a chance. Look on YouTube. I'm like, no, this is arse. But then they've just remastered. It's part of Ubisoft Plus now at the moment. So I've got it on the wish list. If that drops, I might give it a go. But yeah.
Maybe it's a chance to attack it when Shadows comes out. Ubisoft to plus it for a month. Bish bash bosh. There you go.
There you go. Speaking of Game Pass, you pay the... What was Ubisoft now? Is it 20 a month?
Ubisoft Plus costs more than Game Pass Ultimate, yeah. No. It's £20 a month. Yeah.
No.
Which is why you should just sign it up for Shadows.
$17.99. Okay. Yeah. For God's sake. I've still got to finish Mirage. I'm halfway through Valhalla. Oh, God. I'm actually...
Well, you don't have to attack it immediately, but...
My hard drive space would suggest otherwise.
Oh, there you go.
And then Starfield on the 30th, so I got to download 100 plus gigs again.
You know, Harold Haldibert's calling your name. He's feeling left out.
You know, for a 52 gig point and click, that might be next. Yeah.
Quick one then on the Steam side of things. Steam Families is now available for all Steam users. It's transitioning out of beta, so this is pretty much like Xbox Family Sharing,
but for
Steam games. And it allows up to 6 users to share their gaming library in-house. Now, there's a caveat to this, that it's up to developers whether they wish to allow this to be a thing, which they don't explain, but that is actually a fact. So if a developer says, look, no, actually, we only want one, a license is one user, I can't imagine it would carry much favour with the player, but that is apparently the case.
You know what's going to happen? All the big games are going to be one user. All the indie games where they're trying to get shine will be multiple users. That's it. That's all that will happen.
Probably. But I thought it was worth including.
Because I think that's... I think that's part of the reason why Xbox Game Pass family sharing didn't end up materializing, because they ran the public trial, I think, in Ireland and Argentina. So they had the public trials going. I think it was €25 a month or close to. And great value. But again, people are already taking a massive loss with Game Pass.
Yeah.
And you want them to have more people play it for less money? I think it's a licensing thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Probably not, and that could be one of the reasons why a whole bunch of games are missing from standard now. It could be a reason. Maybe they're hemorrhaging a little too much.
You may not be wrong.
That side of things.
Yeah.
But there we go. A quick one on Capcom. So we did do a little short on this, but for those that are listening to the podcast, we've got a resolution. We are seeing that those Capcom fighting collections that were missing on Xbox, they're going to be finding their way, but you're going to have to wait till next year. So it's better than nothing, at least.
Better than nothing. What's tough is that, A, we don't know when next year. That's the first thing. Second of all, the one thing these Capcom collections do not have is crossplay. So that means that everyone who's dying to play this game most likely will either buy it on Steam or PlayStation.
Yeah.
By the time the Xbox version comes out, there's not going to be much of an audience left there to play online with.
So you're going to get it on PlayStation?
I don't know. I haven't bought it yet.
If you want an online game, then maybe it might be the right...
It might be the right game for me. But other than that, the reviews have been doing very well. So faithful to the originals. But yeah.
Cool. So let's finish this podcast up going down memory lane and talking a little bit about the Dreamcast. Firstly, I think before we touch into some of our memorable games, how did you come across the Dreamcast? Like, in which way did you end up with it? Because I was by that point of the life cycle, I was very big on PlayStation 2.
I never had a Dreamcast.
Oh, you never had one?
Every one of my friends had a Dreamcast. And back in those days, I was the kid that was always at someone's house. Yeah, I was hardly home when in my teenage years. So every one of my mates had one. I did want one. I go to one particular mate because he had Quake 3 set up with the 56K modem, the 700-foot cable that would run down the stairs, hang a little bit, disconnect the phone line. And that was just phenomenal. The fact that you could play that in the bedroom, I mean, internet in general back then was just wow. Played very well, took ages to connect, but once you did get a game going, it was great. I had another friend who was big on Sonic Adventure, another friend who Power Stone and Shenmue. You know, so I had different friends who had different interests, and fortunately for me, I got to taste a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
I didn't own the Dreamcast, but that was short-lived because I think once I'd saved enough money, or I was very close to having enough money to buy a Dreamcast, PS2 came out. And so naturally I went straight to PS2 because I had the PS1.
Yeah.
And I think I got a bundle. I got PlayStation 2 with the stand, because the stand was sold separately back then as well.
Yeah.
And Tekken Tag Tournament.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. Tekken Tag.
Because it was technically a better machine, specs-wise.
Way more powerful. It was way more powerful. It could play DVDs as well. The games... Because you got to remember, Sega had to invent a disc format to run their games, and they invented the GD-ROM, the gigabyte disc. And if you remember, CDs were 700 megs, so they weren't massively bigger, but they were big enough to prevent piracy, because PCs didn't have a GD-ROM. It's a proprietary disc, so they felt comfortable with that. But DVDs were on the horizon. Sony, being Sony, a pioneer in that space, just said, hell, we can promote the tech just by throwing it in the machine, and you get a 2-for-1. And it absolutely worked for the PS2. Not so much the PS3, though. That formula didn't work. That Blu-ray was a hell of a thing, yeah.
So I did own one. I didn't buy one brand new. I think when I picked a Dreamcast up, it was a bit of a second-hand jobby on eBay. I can't say I've got, like, amazing memories of that machine. No, I mean, I never played the online element of it. It was very much a system that, by comparison to the PlayStation 2, had a very minuscule selection of games comparatively. And there were ones on there, and the one that struck home most to me, because you know I'm a football fan, was a game that was exclusive to the Dreamcast, and it was called UEFA Striker, and it had Jonathan Pierce as the commentator, the guy from Robot Wars.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, oh, this game's actually got decent commentary on. And it played a bloody good game of football. So that was what I played. That was the game I would say I got the most time out of playing my Dreamcast, was UEFA Striker. And then Crazy Taxi, it was a no-brainer. That was a lot of fun. And then a bit of Ready to Rumble boxing. You know, until Fight Night Round 3 came out, it was the best boxing game that was on a console. And then I also did buy the fishing rod.
Sega Bass Fishing.
Play a bit of Sega Bass Fishing. And then I guess for me, the biggest game that was just... it never was exclusive, but it should have been exclusive, really. And maybe it was... I don't think it was. I think they multi-platformed Virtua Tennis, because I know Virtua Tennis 3 was certainly out on the 360 later on down the line. But I can't remember if Virtua Tennis 1 and 2 ever found its way multi-plat.
I do remember...
Could have been exclusive at one point for Dreamcast.
I remember that there was a tennis game. But yeah, you might be right. I think it was exclusive at the time. I think my biggest memory on Dreamcast is I used to have a mate, and he used to live on top of an off-license, right?
Yeah.
So we used to go up to his house, and he was one of those kids that, you know, he didn't have a great upbringing, but for some reason they always found money for every game under the sun and every console. So we always used to congregate around his house. And if you're listening out, his name was Coleman. Little fat Irish kid. He was a great guy though. And you know, for some reason he bought Marvel vs. Capcom 2. 4 of us went over, and we were up all night. We'd go to the off license downstairs, literally underneath his flat, stock up on everything you can think of, and just literally just be sitting on the floor. Sitting on the floor all night, just couldn't believe it. It was like arcade in your front room, lights off, just chocolates and beer, and oh god, good old days. Yeah, local couch.
Did you ever play around with the VMU?
Yeah, I wanted them to do more with it, but I think I saw an interview with someone at Sega recently, and they said the same thing. They anticipated for game developers to kind of create spin-off versions of the games, so that when you're on the go, you could tackle a task and then resync it to the game later on. And I don't know what game it was. It was like I think it was a harvesting game. You could do something to like harvest crops or something. Then when you come back home, plug it in, and it's like, oh, you finish that task without having to actually play the Dreamcast itself. But yeah, there was severe limitations with that
It was
dot
an
matrix.
oddball thing. It was like the nearest thing to a Tamagotchi for a game console.
Yeah, yeah, it had potential. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I that's what I loved about the Dreamcast is it had the. I don't feel like we ever saw the full potential of it. It was
No.
powerful. It had a keyboard, mouse, fishing rod. The Dreamcast controller obviously had a light
It
gun.
even had the microphone, a game called Seabass.
Microphone, yes, yes.
I don't think it ever found its way into Europe.
No.
It was a Japan-only release.
Yeah.
But it was like, you remember homes back then used to have that fish they'd stick up on the wall?
Yeah, they're the best, yeah.
And it was a fish you just talked to. It was so random
Yeah.
and bizarre. But yeah, that was when
you used to have
things were off kilter.
the little rumble packs because you had 2 slots in the controller, one for the VMU and one for the rumble pack.
Yeah.
And I used to remember thinking like, why the hell would you have a keyboard and mouse for a game console? But then they released the browser as well. But then, more funnily enough, they released Typing of the Dead, which was the spin-off of House of the Dead.
Yeah.
And I had that on PC, so you literally, as the levels go on, the words would get harder to kill. Like, you'd get longer words. Like, it'd start off short, like house, and then you get banana, and then Quasimodo, and you're like, oh, God, and you're trying to, like, frantically type to kill these zombies. So, and it, art style was interesting as well, because every game had this. It was, I want to say it was sharp around the edges, but the textures still had a little blur to them. Not as bad as the N64. But, you know, if I go back and you can look at this, go on YouTube and look at actual Dreamcast hardware running Shenmue. And it's funny because I was absolutely blown away with Shenmue. The fact that you can go into, what was his name? Ryu, I think it was. Go into his house and like open cabinets to look for clues and stuff like that. This is before GTA 3. We never had open world in 3D before. And you used to walk around the streets and you can go into shops and play the gacha machine and you're looking for clues on this, you know, and I'm just blown away by this level of detail. And the funny thing is, when I bought it on Xbox, because they re-released it, they remastered it, you realize it's 3 streets. It's like three to 5 streets long, you know, so it's not massive by today's standards at all. Because when you got things like Grand Theft Auto, you got a whole city to do whatever you want to do. But back then, I was just mind-blown the fact you can go to a store and look through I want to buy some sushi, and then you have to go and pay for it. And then there was just so much to do. It was like a life simulator almost. So
Yeah, it was. They got used to doing some boring forklift jobs. And
the forklift, the forklift racing was the rage back then. Oh, you clip a pixel on that container and that's it. It's over. You got to restart the race. But yeah, I do have some fond memories of it. I am sad that it got killed very quickly. It was only a year, I think, wasn't it? A little over a year before the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. Yeah.
I wish we got to see more of it because there was definitely developer enthusiasm, and that's the biggest thing. But
I think there's still people making games in homebrew for the for that machine.
You can get discs with thousands of games that MAME and PS1 games and all sorts.
I'm still looking for my Hello Kitty one.
What game?
They brought out a Hello Kitty Dreamcast.
Oh, did they?
And I've been looking for one that's you know, like hits the price point where I'm not getting stung. But yeah, if I ever get a Dreamcast back, that's the one I want to get.
Hang on, I got to see this. Oh wow, it's all pink.
Yeah.
Wow, they even have
every time I look at it, the price is ridiculous.
It's translucent as well. Interesting. I always remember the legal debacle they had because they'd finalized the logo and right before launch, they got sued in the UK. So if you remember, the Dreamcast logo in most of the world is a red squiggly circle.
Yeah.
But in the UK it was blue.
Blue,
because there was a company who already used the red version of that logo for some reason. So if you get a UK one, it's a very rare unit. Yeah. Very interesting.
I don't know if I'll ever pick one up again. Maybe. We'll see.
Dreamcast.
We'll see
I used to love the loading sound.
As long as there's a wireless, I'm sure someone's done a ported wireless controller version of it.
You know, the wires on those...
I have for the PlayStation 2.
Yeah. The wires on the Dreamcast controllers were pretty long. I do remember that. Yeah.
They were, but they were... I don't know why, but they just felt like they were better quality.
The Dreamcast?
Yeah. They felt like they're better quality. They tend to, you know, you could throw anything at it and it wouldn't mess it up.
It was a bit
but
of a
I
tank.
just can't do wires on controllers full stop anymore.
The snobbish first world problems.
Well, there you go.
Wireless
Even
or
when I
nothing.
rebuilt my dad's PlayStation 2 because he wanted to play Archer McLean's Pool Paradise.
Archer McLean.
So I bought him. I found my old PS2 Slim. I gave it to him, and I kitted it up. So it's got a HDMI converter on it, on the back, and I've got him the conversion pack. So he's got a wireless controller for a PS2.
Nice.
And so it's all set up nicely for him. But has he played it? Nope.
Yeah, it's like my dad. I gave him a MacBook, hasn't used it. Gave him at one point I gave him an Xbox 360 because he wanted it. Didn't touch it, so I took it back. I'm like, I got a bit of use for this.
He touched down in Boston, Massachusetts today. They're out on their month-long cruise.
Nice.
So,
haven't been to Boston.
God, I'd love to have been on that cruise with them. But anyway,
Where's it? Boston to where?
Well, they started off in Canada because it's a whole month. So they've started. They left Southampton. It goes all the way over to Canada, a few spots in Canada, and then into America, and then on the way back home. So they're in Boston for 2 days. Then a couple of days they end up in New York, and just living the dream, mate. I guess that's what you're meant to do when you retire.
There you go. Time to get the credit card out.
Need a lottery win. No, I'm not making that mistake again. I already did that with previous cruises in the past. But
hey, if you don't buy Astro Bot, then you might.
Well, I'm 100% debt free. I mean, that's a good thing at least. But
there you go. It's a feeling.
I was expecting the economic downturn to have reached crisis levels by now. So I was like, I'm just going to clear myself of any debt. and so far the people eating out of, well, I don't know, it depends on the news reports, because I thought people at this point would be eating dog food from tins, but instead apparently people are eating dogs and cats.
I've really
according to the debate.
I've really enjoyed the Sheba adverts. It always looked a bit tasty, didn't it? Those little 4 packs of Sheba.
I'd be interested to see what does happen the next few years. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it ends up being that we all look like slightly anemic and lacking vitamins, then maybe there'll be some point in the future there's a podcast where we're literally living the Fallout universe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just came, and this is a fun fact before we head off.
Oh no.
The UK was ranked the second most miserable place in the world.
Oh yeah,
as of like 2 weeks ago.
Not great.
Ask me what.
It's not great.
Ask me what number 1 is.
It's number 1 and.
Go on, I'll let you have a guess. And this
is it America?
This tells you exactly where the UK is in the world. No, it's not America. It's Uzbekistan.
Oh really?
Uzbekistan is the most miserable place in the world. This is not me saying. This is an article I read, and the UK is a close second. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's not great at the moment. It really isn't.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, if you don't get the right result out of November, you could be on that list as well shortly.
Well, we technically already live in that right now, so there you go.
Anyway, that wraps it up for another episode, guys. Thanks for listening. And we shall see you probably the next time you see us will actually be when whatever happens with this Tokyo Game Show. And I'm not sure what to expect from it, to be honest with you. As far as we know, there could be a possibility that Square Enix might share some deliciousness to Xbox, but I'm not very familiar with the Tokyo Game Show stuff because I don't really play a lot of stuff that's Japanese developer related apart from Final Fantasy games. So I don't know what to expect from that event.
Give Persona 5 a spin.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
I have to give it a go. But we think it will probably be around about a 40-minute piece, at least coming out from Xbox. And we're also expecting, if the rumours are true, we are expecting some state of play before the end of the month. But who knows? Perhaps nothing will happen on that front. But that seems to be what the speculation is. But anyway, until then, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.